something, and probably when you were coming up with the idea, it was you're probably laughed at because no one was thought about doing these legal things online. They're like, why would you do that? You needed an attorney to do those things because when you first started this, it was a very unique situation, and most people didn't trust doing things such as estate planning online. The internet was still taboo per se. So happy to have you on here to talk about how you decide to disrupt estate planning.
Okay, thank you, Joshua, for having me on. And yeah, it's been a long journey. We started this back in 2001. We went online, and it all came about because myself and my co-founder, we were working in high tech, and every week we used to go out for drinks after work and on a Friday. And then one time there were a whole bunch of us sitting around the table, and somebody said, you know what, guys, I don't have a will. And we went around the table. Everybody knew it was important. We all had jobs, we had families, houses, and we went around the table, and not one person out of the 15 people around the table had a will. And so it got us thinking. This is back in 2001. We're like, that seems messed up. That's a broken system. Like, we all knew it was important, so why have we not got it done? And so myself and my co-founder, we were sitting next to each other at the time and thought, there has to be a better way. Why aren't we getting it done? What are the barriers? And it was a classic, like, see a broken system, look for an opportunity and see if we could fix it. And 25 years later, we're still fine-tuning what we had.
So you're just sitting around a table having drinks, and then you have this idea of like, we need to go online with this.
Yeah, and there were back then in 2001, there were like will kits, like blank form things you could buy from Staples. Like, they had those, they weren't very good. And like 2001, I don't know, like, from your audience, how clear 2001 is in people's minds. But back then it was a time where I think there was a dot-com boom going on at the time. People were looking at putting things on the internet. It was like that. We were getting fast modems. Like, we were able to shop online. There were things that we could do. So it was a natural, like, okay, there's got to be, can we do a service? Can we create a service that guides people through the process and put their information? But there's no question that we were ahead of the world's readiness for that. People had to feel comfortable putting in personal information, and at that time, I don't think people were quite ready for it. So it took a few years of building momentum before we could say, okay, this is legit, this is credible, people are quite happy to use it. And at the start, it was definitely our first customers were our friends. And then I remember distinctly the first time a random person from wherever found our service, used it, and prepared their will. And that was a moment for us. And we thought, okay, we have something. We can build from this.
Yeah, and from 2000 to like 2002, you were in that tech boom where basically if you went an IPO and you had a .com at the end of your name, you were magically super rich, even if the company had no intrinsic value at all. And it was a crazy time because people were investing money into these companies. They were saying like, oh, you can't lose if you buy the stock, everything's going up. And then eventually there's only very few companies from that time that are still here. I think even like Cisco took like 20 years to recover because like Cisco was like the hot company during that time. And Amazon just came out, and then their stock price went down like 90% at some point. And fast forward, Amazon.com is everyone shops there. Everyone puts in their credit card information. Everyone shares their address, phone number, email online now. Like, it's no big deal. But back then, people were like, why would I do that?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it was a time, we're getting nostalgic for a bit, but it was a time where every Super Bowl commercial was a .com. Like if somebody had an idea for putting it, there was like pets.com, like, oh, get your dog food delivered to your house. And they had a Super Bowl commercial, and they had like $1 bazillion in VC funding. But we never, from the get-go, we never thought of it as like an IPO exit kind of thing. We were always looking at it in terms of, can we create a viable service that had revenue, and we could, we didn't get any outside investment. We still haven't. We never have in 25 years. We've always used our revenues from the business to fund the business. And so, and back in that time, actually, we were working for a company called Nortel. Nortel was like a shining light back then, and disappeared. 100,000 employees all got laid off. So yeah, we certainly experienced the highs and lows of that time.
So when you're going through building out this platform, what was like the first step that you took? Because doing online development back then, like everything was much slower than it is today. The internet was slower. We didn't have as much storage space. So storage was very expensive. Like Amazon, I think at that point was doing like AWS services. And we had someone on here in the tech space who said it was free back then and things like that. So like as you're developing something such as legal services, which I think attorneys still operate like it's 1955 and not 2025.
Faxes, yeah.
So what was like that process like back then?
So we, there was a lot of manual. I remember distinctly in my co-founder's basement, we actually flow charted our service using index cards and string. We laid it out on the floor, and there's a photo of us trying to figure out the flow. And there probably was flow charting tools back then, but we didn't have them, or we just felt it easier was to visualize it on the basement floor. And then we built out a service, and I think it was always a view to like it's classic, like minimal viable product, like what we could create that people could use and get us to revenue. So we built that, and it was a will service that it was good. Like it was still good even back then. I'm not going to say it was cobbled together, but I mean, we've made it better. And over the years, we've redesigned. Like it's kind of funny. Like when you look at the look and feel of the website, whenever you do a refresh of the look and feel, the colors, the graphics, and everything else, it's always a jolt to move into a new design. But then when you look at the old design, you're like, oh man, that was overdue. Like, so we've definitely redesigned and refreshed over the years, probably like 5 or 6 times. And the first look and feel of it was 2001, 2002. But the core of what we had back then is still in our system today. So yeah, it was, I think that we did look at speed issues more, like loading times and things like that were more of an issue back then. But the actual design of the service is quite consistent through the years.
So what was that core that you set up on those index cards in the basement in 2001 that's still prevalent today?
So using our service, you step through, and it's an interactive will writing service. So the key for us is to make it better than a will kit. So if you step through, the first question is, where are you? Like, where are you located? So that is going to direct you, because in every state, in every province. So now we're across Canada, we're across the US, we're in the UK, we're in South Africa. And legal documents are different in every jurisdiction. So the first question we ask is, where are you? And based on the answer to that question, we're going to send you into any one of 100 different paths, depending on your jurisdiction. The next question is, are you married? Do you have a family? Do you have children? Do you have grandchildren? And again, it's a tree that you answer that question, but based on if you have young children, then you're going to have to name a guardian for those children. You have to set up a trust for minors and things like that. So it's very much a flow chart and a decision tree. And that decision tree, we've created new options. We've developed more paths through that tree, but the tree is still there. And it's interesting, actually, because we predated tax software, and tax software became a watershed moment, I feel, for people feeling comfortable using an online finance tool, an interactive tool like that. And so when Intuit, H&R Block, all of the tax services came online, which has now become the de facto way of filing your taxes, when they came online, it normalized that process a little bit for us to allow people to like, oh, okay, I can create an account, I can go on, I can put my information on in there, and then get a product at the end. So that's the same model, and it helped make it more acceptable.
Yeah, I mean, from the beginning, when you started back in 2001, when the internet was just hitting the main stage, there was a lot of skepticism. At what point did you start to see getting first? There's like early adopters, like people are like willing to try anything. They're willing to buy the iPhone. They're willing to hop on the internet. And then you know there's a lag. So how long was that lag, and how did you survive during that lag point, being that you bootstrapped this thing and didn't take any outside money?
So we were quite fast to revenue, relatively speaking, but it was very much in the first couple of years, it was a side hustle. We had our main jobs, but we were working for Nortel, where we felt that the future prospects for Nortel looked shaky. Turned out they were. So we knew that we had some time to transition to build a service that could fund us full time. But the honest truth, and I don't think Nortel will come after us now, the honest truth were that we were doing some of this work while we were working at Nortel, certainly in the evenings. Let's say we were doing it during our break time at Nortel. Off the clock, yeah. But we were able to, and I would say that to anybody who was thinking of taking a leap, see if you can side hustle it for as long as you can. And, you know, there's always that road to walk. Like we could potentially have got there faster if we'd taken the leap and gone full time. But I don't think the world was particularly ready for it anyway. So we were able to build what we had and make it robust and have lots of options and build that out so it was ready for when the world was ready. And then we were in a position to say, well, as it turned out, we had no choice. Nortel dissolved, and then we were like, okay, well, fortunately, we built this soft landing for us.
So when Nortel dissolved, like what was the environment like in terms of bringing this to the market, in terms of people willing to go through this process? Was like the timing a little still early? Was it like right on schedule and like, you know, everything was just clicking and all the stars were aligning? Like, help us paint that picture.
I would, no, the stars weren't quite aligning. And I think it's fair to say that we're still on that path. Like, we're still on that path of acceptance from, even now, if you look at forums for people talking about wills, they say, you need a lawyer. You can't do it online. Like, online services aren't as good as a lawyer. So it wasn't a switch that flipped. It's a path that we're still on in terms of gaining acceptance. So back then, maybe like 5% of people thought it was a good approach. And now we're maybe at 70% of people think it's a good approach. But we're still, we have not reached a point where everybody, and certainly talk to the legal community, they're not necessarily all embracing it. Some are, but some are absolutely not. So it's a continual path, and it wasn't a sudden like we're there. It's now the way to go. We're still working on that messaging.
Yeah, I know like QuickBooks, like you can do the online and then you could pay maybe a little extra, and then like a bookkeeper or like an enrolled agent or an accountant, depending on how much you pay, could come on to like help you. Is that something that you've thought about doing? Are you already doing it? I wasn't sure. I just thought about that idea. Like you go on your website, I'm doing it myself, but then I can pay a flat fee and have an attorney guide me how to do it for, lesser than going into an office, driving there, driving back, thinking, is this person have my best interest in mind? Or are they just trying to pull a fast one on me and say I need a trust when I just need a basic, care package, those sort of things?
So it's a good question, and I do feel that there's opportunity still in working with a law firm and using our service as a front end into that law firm, so the person can step through the service and prepare themselves for their meeting, and understand what their will is, and answer a whole bunch of questions about their will, and then meet with the lawyer. But specifically for that scenario, we provide an option where somebody can have their will reviewed by a lawyer at the end, but they don't meet face to face. And I think there's two challenges with that. Firstly is scalability. Like how many lawyers are we going to need? They don't typically sit in call centers, like, ready to take people's calls. And also there's still a huge leap between the service that we offer at $49 and what a lawyer is going to charge as a upsell, $800 upsell. To talk to a lawyer, it's not very palatable for somebody who spent $49 on the will to say, well, if you want, you can pay $800 and speak to someone. It's really a different kind of market, but there is definitely an opportunity to have a hybrid model with lawyers without us necessarily having a lawyer pop up. I don't really know how many accountants QuickBooks have sitting there waiting to take calls. It's a good.
I never used it. I see the option come up and I just ignore it.
Yeah, and it really depends on, like, if we're charging $50, it's like, for an extra 30, you could do that. For an extra 600, people wouldn't do it.
Yeah, it's just such a large leap going from $50 to this amount.
Yeah. But there are definitely opportunities for sure.
Yeah, just something I've seen other companies do it. I wonder, but yeah, I mean, I could see how getting attorneys, if you're dealing with different states, different laws, it's much different than just like, accounting, which in America you have your federal return and then you might have like a state return, for most folks that aren't business owners and things like that. But since attorneys are expensive.
Yeah, so there is a lot of licensing, governance, regulation around that. So that, and we were able to disrupt because we are not a law firm. So we weren't necessarily tied down by a lot of that governance. So we were really giving people the tools to prepare their own documents. And I think it's a distinct separation between us and writing somebody's will. We don't write people's wills for them. So there's some subtleties there.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like based off what you've been saying is the company is continuously evolving. And now, when you first started, there was this internet boom, .com boom going on. Now we're in the different boom.
Well, yeah. I mean,
how's that going for you guys?
The different boom? Are you talking about like an AI boom?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we are at a watershed moment. There's no question. And I was actually asked recently, do you think AI could ever replace the work of a lawyer? And I kind of looked at them like, it's going to happen. Like, it's like, not if it can, it will. It will, no question. When? I don't for sure know. It's your guess is as good as mine, but there are going to be a lot of services and a lot of people's jobs that will be replaced by AI. And I think that we are certainly looking at ways to embrace and embed AI capabilities within our service. But anybody who's sitting in an office thinking that they're going to avoid or escape the growth of AI I hope they're near retirement age, because they're not going to avoid it.
Yeah, I saw a stat the other day where if you have like a team, you have like one senior member and like 4 junior members, essentially AI can replace all 4 of those people.
Yeah,
quite easily.
And somebody that recently made a good point is that the challenge is that the senior people only became senior people because they did the junior years, right? Mm-hmm. So if the junior years aren't happening anymore, then how do you ever get the senior people? Because there's an apprenticeship that needs to be journeyed, and AI is replacing that work. So not my problem to sort out, but there's going to be a disruption.
Yeah, I mean, you just basically have to embrace it, and it becomes a very useful tool that you can use, whether you're an attorney, an accountant, no matter what your job is. It's kind of like when YouTube got very popular and people were like, oh, I need to fix this. How do I fix it? I just go on YouTube and I watch a step-by-step video versus I was talking to my wife's uncle and he goes, yeah, like when I first bought my house, I don't know when he bought it. He's like, I'd have to go through these manuals and I'd have to read these manuals. And then it would take me half the manual to get to the step for the instructions for me to figure out how to fix things. Yeah. And I mean, that's really all technology is speed and efficiency and how fast and how efficient can you do something. And not just in how fast or efficient, but like doing it correctly without any mistakes.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting you say that. Like, I think it's funny now that when you buy a new phone, it doesn't even come with a manual. Like, you're not expected to read how to use this phone, right? You're supposed to go online now, and they're hoping that some, enthusiast has put together the step-by-step guide on their behalf. So yeah, things disrupt and things change, and we're ready to embrace that change. And there have been, even in the will writing world, there have been changes over the years with electronic signing of documents. That's something that came about really during COVID. It took forever. Like, we started our service thinking that digital signatures is going to be a cool thing. This is 2001. It was becoming the way to do things, but wills were always exempt. The law for determining what a legal will was written in 1837 and hasn't changed. It really has not changed. It says a will must be on a piece of paper, it must be signed in ink in the presence of 2 witnesses who then sign that. And for 180 years, that didn't change. COVID prompted some change to say, well, actually, maybe you could sign it over a Zoom call and maybe do an electronic signing with Zoom. And now in Canada, 1 province allows electronic signing. In the US, about 10 to 12 states allow the electronic signing of wills. But it goes to show how we lucked out as a business. Like, we went in against or in a field with lawyers, which allowed us to go so much and adapt so much quicker, adopt new technologies so much quicker, because as you made the point, that lawyers, who are sending faxes to each other aren't the fastest to adopt new technologies.
Yeah, I mean, based on what you're saying, what I'm thinking is like the legal field during that time where everyone was hunkered in their homes, their business had to go online. So it forced the hand to be like, hey, like, you got to do these things online. Otherwise, our company we can't go to people's houses and people can't leave their houses or come in the office. So it essentially forced them to, be reasonable, which is you got to adapt with the times.
Yeah. So we had a COVID, there were a confluence of 2 wonderful things for online will writing companies. One is people contemplated their mortality because they thought, what the heck is this plague coming out of Asia? Like, people genuinely at that time thought, I could die from this thing. And they weren't able to write a will with a lawyer. They couldn't leave their house and go to a law firm. So they looked at ways to put their affairs in order, and services like ours were a perfect fit. So, and it's kind of funny. It's interesting because there were some companies that came online doing what we do like a year or two before that, and all of their wishes came true within like a year of them coming online. It was like a perfect situation. So we did benefit. There was a definite like whoop. And what we have found as well is that people who use our service, two things happen. One is they say, oh, if I'd known it was going to be this easy, I would have done it years ago. So knowing that it can be done and it's great. And also I have amazing peace of mind knowing that I've finally done it. I knew it was something I should do, and now I've got it off my to-do list. So when people experience those two things, they go and tell their friends and family. So it was a real inflection point for us where more people tried our service and word spread that actually this is a great way to write your.
Yeah, I mean, you're in the tech world and you're dealing with people's entire lives and legal structures for their families. So it could be a very complicated process, but how are you making it not overly complicated so that when someone goes on, they're like, wow, I should have done this a million years ago. Was it really that easy?
Yeah, so we all online service providers of any, I guess, of any industry, of any service, we always have to walk that line between having the flexibility and the capabilities within a service with keeping it simple and keeping it intuitive. And every service provider, even in the will space, we've all decided to take a different path there. So some say, you know what, we're gonna be able to cater for 70% of the people out there by offering only 3 options on this page. And we've really taken a path where we don't feel that the service should dictate what you want to do. So we do provide more flexibility within the service, but it generally requires a little bit more thought. So we try and keep it simple. We ask simple questions, absolutely. But when you get to distribute your estate, we do say, okay, what do you want to do? And then the next question is, okay, so what if that person doesn't survive you? Then what do you want to do with their share if they're not around? And okay, if you want it to go there, then what happens if that person's not around? So there are things you can do to make it a little bit more thought-provoking and potentially more complicated, but we walk that path of trying to make sure that every situation is covered. But we try and keep it light, and we try and keep it.
So let's just say someone worked with an attorney 15 years ago, and now they need to update everything. How does legal wills do that? Are they able to like upload it? Like typically people are like, oh, I got to go find this attorney if they're even still around to help me with this, or hiring a new attorney, or they've moved states. So what's that process?
Yeah, so I think one of the challenges is even if you went into an attorney's office and said, you know what, I just want to change this one thing in my will. An attorney's never going to let you change that one thing. They're going to sit you down and say, okay, let's have a review. Where are you now? What's your situation now? Well, let's start again, right? Because rarely can you go in and just tweak one thing. In fact, like a lot of people come to our service because they say, I wrote my will with an attorney 5 years ago, and now I want to change the name of my executor, and they want $800 for it. And it's like, well, the reason is they're not just going to change that one thing. They're going to sit down with you and have a full review of your situation now. So in the same way as we don't allow you to upload a document and change that one thing. We say, start afresh, have another thing. Like, are there charities in your life that you weren't a part of your circle 5 years ago? Or you may have pets that you may want to take care of now that you didn't have 5 years ago. There are things for you to consider when you step through it. So start again, because really the process for using our services, it only takes about half an hour to go through it, especially if you've got an idea of what you want to do. You don't have to do it in half an hour. You can take your time, but you would start again, and we may ask you questions that the attorney didn't ask first time.
Have you gotten like any other unusual requests other than like people wanting to leave a pet a bunch of money?
So,
I had to ask.
Yeah, and I think it's an important point to realize that writing your will is an opportunity to really do cool things, and those cool things could be leaving an important possession to somebody who it's meaningful to. Right? You have a signed, Sammy Sosa baseball bat, right? Well, your wife has no interest in that whatsoever, right? So why leave everything to one person, right? So you can go through and say, yeah, I want this thing to go to that person. My nephew has always been a huge fan, right? So you can sit there and you can leave $5,000 to your niece to travel the world. You can do, or like I mentioned, like charities, you can say, you know what, I really wish I'd been a little bit more charitable. Like life's, there's a cost of living crisis. It's been hard at the end of each month to put something away to charity. So my will's an opportunity to do that and make a difference to a social cause in your town. So there are definitely odd things, and we did a review where somebody left their wooden leg to somebody, and there are things like that. But I like to think of it as a real opportunity, and we always bring up, like Aretha Franklin. She died without a will, or she had like 5 handwritten wills stuffed around her house. For practical purposes, she didn't have a will, and she had this $80 million estate. And I'm like, what a missed opportunity. She could have had like a scholarship for young aspiring musicians in Detroit. She could have had all of her memorabilia going to a museum. Like, there were so many things she could have done, and she just dropped the ball completely. And she was surrounded by advisors who could have helped her out, but for whatever reason. And you don't have to have an $80 million estate. You can still do cool things, even if you have $5,000 or, just your odd possession. So it's an opportunity. So
by using the service, it's very easy to create the documents. What about enforcing the documents? How does that look like? Because I've never inherited money or anything like that. So I don't know how that would work. Like, you do this document, if someone finds it, like, how do you enforce it?
Yeah.
For anyone who is inheriting something.
Right. So there's the key piece in there, which is probably the most important part of a will, is within the will, you name an executor. And that executor could be your friend or family member, but it is the person that you are giving the responsibility to take charge, which means gathering up all of your assets, securing your assets, and then distributing them according to the instructions in the will. And people say, well, what happens if you die without a will? Not having an executor is probably one of the most important consequences of not having a will, because without a will, what typically happens is one of two things. You have everybody looking at each other saying, well, what's going on? Like, who's in charge here? Or worse, 3 people are saying, don't worry, I've got this, I'm in charge. Right? Like, just, you haven't named somebody. So what can often happen in family situations is somebody saying, Mom promised me the diamond ring, so I'm just going to grab it. And the painting above the fireplace, that's mine. And all of these things, everyone, it's an ugly situation where it's a free for all, everyone's helping themselves. Happens all the time for people who have died without a will. So what happens immediately is the process is that, first of all, you let your executor know, I've named you as the executor in my will. So just make sure that you're prepared to take this on. I want you to know. And secondly, here's my will. It's signed and witnessed. Please look after it. It's in a sealed envelope. You don't have to read it now, but you have it. Or if you don't feel comfortable, just let them know it's in my filing cabinet at home. My will's in there. If something were to happen to me, get that will. You're named as the executor. So one way or another, the executor needs to know, and they need to have that will. And immediately what they then start to do is secure your assets. And then after that, and that could even be like changing the locks on the doors if you think there might be a bit of a free-for-all. And then after that, they have to go through the process of gathering your assets. And there's a process called probate. And probate is where the will is officially recognized as your last will and testament, and that person is given the authority to act as the executor. They're given what's called a grant of probate, and that document allows them to go to the banks, your investment companies, and gather up all of the assets. The other important part of that process is making sure that your executor has a chance of knowing what your assets are, like the full extent of your assets. And we have a service that allows people to document all of their assets, and people go through it and say, oh my God, this is a really onerous task, listing all my bank accounts and everything. Like, yeah, imagine if this is your brother-in-law trying to do it after you've died. It's a really difficult job, and they will never know that there was an asset that was undiscovered. They knew nothing about it. So it's a good idea to document all of the assets, not in the will itself, but in a document that you either store with the will or some other way of making sure that the executor knows the extent of your assets. Back in our parents' day, it's a long answer, sorry, but back in our parents' day, they had like 2 bank accounts, checking account, a savings account, and with a monthly statement that came in the mail. And we don't have that now. We have vastly distributed bank accounts all over the place. So it's a difficult job for your executor now.
Got it. Yeah, it makes sense. I have a client right now where the daughter was named like the trustee or executor of the estate, and it's just like she's like, people hit me up like, when is this going to get done? She's like, well, I have to deal with A, B, C, D, E, F, G things. It's like not a fast process at all, especially if something's written in a, I think it's a irrevocable trust. So it's even more complicated versus like a revocable trust and things like that. I mean, there's all those constituents that nobody even thinks of.
Yeah, and you know what? And talking about like revolutions in technology, we've gone through a Bitcoin, NFTs like that came and went. They were like, you know, people's futures were all in NFTs, and they fell off the front page. But yeah, certainly like crypto is a challenging one to pass on to loved ones, and even just like online accounts, like your revenues from YouTube channels and domain names and Twitter handles and all of these kind of things that could potentially have value that need to be documented somewhere, because somehow that executor has to secure that asset and then pass it on to a beneficiary. So we have moved through this whole digital asset wave as well, which is another area that I think that more old school traditional lawyers are finding challenging.
Yeah, I mean, some people don't even have access to their own crypto wallets. They lose the password and it's just gone. So
absolutely. So what happens is you have $10 million in Bitcoin, and you're saying, I'm going to leave that to my nephew. Make sure that your executor has the tools to be able to find it and pass it to a beneficiary. Not and you know what? Make sure your executor has the expertise to be able to do that too. Like, don't name, like, if you name your parents as the executor and your dad's 92, he might struggle with that.
Yeah. I mean, I know some about crypto, but I'm not like an expert. But I think about it, I was like, if people don't have access to these things, does it just sit there forever? Like, what happens to it?
So I'm not an expert either. So somebody may be able to answer this. I think more likely, like the part that we deal with is making sure that your executor knows that it exists, and then they can go through. I mean, there are other challenging items with passing on like online accounts for things like, you know, a party poker account, or, you know, like some gambling sites. Just getting access to those things can be challenging, because, you know, you could say, oh, well, just leave a spreadsheet of user IDs and passwords. You could do that for your executor, but technically you're contravening the terms of use of that service. You can't share your user ID and password, and there's a bit of a security risk there as well. So, you know, there's some challenges there. But yeah, I honestly don't know if you haven't given the keys to your crypto wallet. I'm not quite sure what happens.
Because I mean, I guess if you get court documents and you send them the court documents, but I mean, I don't even know where these cryptocurrency companies are located. Like, what's the jurisdiction? Like, are they in like Bali, or are they in like where are they? So like, do you even have jurisdiction to be able to be like, oh, I have this from the court, give me access to it? And they could just be like, well, we don't have to listen.
Yeah, I have looked at that. They're in the Isle of Man, they're in Monaco, they're in Gibraltar, Cayman Islands. They're the kind of places where they are. So yeah, it's I guess the message here is, if you do have it, make sure you've documented somewhere where it's going to be passed, because these are not trivial assets. Like, these are assets that they could actually technically be the most valuable asset in your estate. So make sure that instruction is there for you. Exactly.
Yeah. So going back to that one night around the table, having some drinks, coming up with the idea, laying out the flow chart, how has your mindset changed with finances and leaving a legacy through this journey of building this organization?
I think most importantly, like, I now at least understand the implications of not having a will. I now understand that a will doesn't have to be associated with an impending death. Like, it doesn't, like, and we're trying to change that. Like, it's a part of financial planning. Writing a will should be something that you do when you become an adult, and you change throughout your life and update throughout your life. So it used to be, I think, people, if you said to people, oh, just to let you know, I've written my will, and was like, oh my God, are you okay? And it shouldn't be like that. It really should be, I'm adulting now, and I'm putting my important papers in place. And I really do, we actually changed our service a few years ago to include specifically a page on charitable bequests. So when you step through the service, before you distribute your assets, we say, by the way, have you thought of charities? You could leave 1% of your estate, or just a little bit of your estate, and your family and loved ones aren't even going to notice, but it could make a difference to a charity. And my mindset around wills really changed to that opportunity to make a social difference. And we actually did a study just earlier this year, and our service alone on that page has generated about $500 million in planned bequests that are going to go to charities over the next, year to decades, whatever. But it's that, to me, is one of the most important parts of our service. Yeah, okay, we've done 500,000 wills over the years, and we can pat ourselves on the back for that. But I think that charitable element to our service has been the most rewarding part of the journey that we've taken.
Yeah, it's cool. So it's what, legalwills.com?
It's actually not. Yeah, so it's legalwills.ca is in Canada, uslegalwills.com. Is
uslegalwills.com.
uslegalwills.com. And then we have legalwills.co.uk and then legalwills.co.za for South Africa.
Cool. So y'all are worldwide. So like me as like a financial professional, I could direct someone to your site to like at least get something written down. Having something written down is better than zero. Otherwise, you might end up like Miss Franklin.
Yeah, so it's an important point. We always say, hey, uslegalwills.com, better than nothing. And it's not. We never use that as a tagline. And really, actually, for financial advisor, it's a really good opportunity to engage with the customer and understand them a little bit better about their family situation, their assets. We're not all married with 2 children. Some of us have children from other relationships. And understanding where philanthropy fits with your client, understanding where the what if scenarios fit, like, okay, so if this person doesn't survive you, what do you want to happen? It's a really good way to understand the client a little bit better. And we partner with a lot of financial advisors who use the will as a vehicle for really learning and getting to know their client a lot better.
Yeah, it's cool. Well, everyone needs to check it out, whether you're in America, Canada, South Africa. Is there any other places y'all are at other than those 3?
Oh, the UK as well, yeah.
UK. Got it. Well, Tim, enjoyed it. It's very unconventional. Went from drinking around a table to helping a lot of people leave charitable bequests and leaving a legacy. Anything else before I let you run?
No, I really appreciate it. Thank you for the questions. I've enjoyed sharing our journey. I hope it was useful.
Awesome.